Welcome to the Black Diamond, my friends. It is Monday the 3rd of April, 2017. John Lavinia here, as I am each week, to host one of my favorite calls of the week. Well, actually, they're all my favorite calls because I'm a host or co-host on all of them, but I hope this is one of your favorite calls as well. This is always a fun conversation that we have each week where we just let our hair down, so to speak, or in the case of our guest speaker tonight, we let our beards down, and we have... and we have a conversation about how to get to the top. So yeah, Black Diamond, here we go. Couple quick announcements. We do have remaining tickets for the Marketing Mastery event, which you can go to your Digital Altitude member site, log in, and you'll probably see a pop-up to remind you that we are having this event. That is this month, right? That's April 19th through 21st or 2nd, and that's going to be right near Disney World there in Orlando, Florida, at one of the Disney hotel resort things there. And you can get more information right there on your Digital Altitude member site, or go to mgtow.com, which will take you right over to digitalaltitude.co/MME. So whichever one is easier for you to type that one, mydaevents.com or digitalaltitude.co/MME. Be there. I am so looking forward to it. I know our co-host tonight is looking forward to it as well. And of course, there's even group rates on the hotel rooms and such. So don't delay on that. Okay, some people wait till the last possible second to do that, and I suggest you do otherwise. So go ahead and make sure you got your tickets for that. Also, if you are a new RISE member, you're getting your ticket reimbursed. They're doing Sherpa ticket reimbursements at the event. Once you're there, that is an opportunity for you if you're a new RISE member within the last couple months. So what are we doing here? This is the Black Diamond. What do we do on the Black Diamond? Well, this call is a little bit different in the way that we pretty much tell it like it is. This is obviously members only. I know that sometimes some non-members sneak on here, but to see what's going on with all these crazy people in Digital Altitude. But this call has been going in its various forms for years, actually long before Digital Altitude started. And it's a way for us to get together with top earners, people who have made it to the top in their respective field, in their profession, to share with you for real. Like, here's what it takes. Here's like no BS. Here's what it really takes to get to the top. So here's my request for you is as you listen and hopefully participate tonight, we will have a questions and comments section towards the end. But as you participate, see how these ideas apply into your own life and into your own business. This is, you're going to hear experiences, as you do each week on this call, from people who have done some pretty great stuff. And but that doesn't help you unless you do something with it, right? So this is information for use. Yes, please use it and see how these ideas work for you. Take what you like and leave the rest. You're not going to use everything, but see how you can apply these ideas. And of course, as always, if we say anything that offends you, you'll get over it. That's just how we go. So tonight we are talking about something that seems native to every successful person. In fact, it seems native to every person until we start to look at the behaviors of some people and how they sort of divert themselves from this one thing that I'm talking about. And I'm talking about making a commitment, being committed, being someone who is not able to be easily shaken off of your purpose. That's really what I'm getting to here with this. And I think you can probably see, just from my opening comments here, that, yeah, I feel like I'm a pretty committed person. Okay, and I would agree. Now, first of all, you're here on a Monday evening or a Tuesday morning if you're across the date line, and you're listening to this rather than doing other less resourceful things. So bravo, I'll acknowledge that. That's valid. That's good. And yet, when we look at the characteristics of any business, really, not just what we're doing here in online marketing or DA specifically, but the characteristics of the people who populate any enterprise, any organization, we'll find that there are a variety. There are a variety of stats. In other words, you've got the top 3%, and for some reason, that seems to be 3%. The top 3% is always 3%. And then you've got the bottom 3%. The people that never did anything, they barely showed up, they accidentally showed up once, whatever. These are the part-time, some-timers, when they're not too busy doing other useless things. And then there's everybody like the rank and file. And I've noticed this in a variety of businesses and organizations that I've been around. And I was thinking about, one thing, like, is there one thing? I'm going to start with a quote here. So I think this will set the table nice for you, Josh. Is there one thing that causes these top 3%ers or 1%ers or 5%ers to be in that top 1, 3, or 5%? And it reminds me of something that Albert E.N. Gray said, and some of you may have heard me talk about this before because I think it's just one of the greatest business speeches that I've ever read a transcript of. This was a guy who worked with Prudential Insurance back in the 1950s, and he had a lot of people under his supervision, and he was looking for what he called the common denominator of success. He wanted to see, is there one thing that causes the top producers to be top producers, and he wanted it to be something that would apply to anyone, whether they were in Prudential Insurance or they were Olympic athlete or anyone who had ever succeeded at anything. Okay, and here's what he discovered. He said, what I was looking for was the common denominator of success, and because that's what I was looking for, that's what I found. And I'm paraphrasing now. I'm not looking at the transcript in front of me, but you can actually find this online. You can download it if you'd like. He said, here it is. Here's the common denominator of success for all people who have ever been successful at anything ever. Here it is. Successful people have developed the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. There you go. There's the common denominator of success. So he went on to talk about why they've done this. It's not because they like doing these things. It's not like they're lucky and, oh, how fortunate they are that they like doing these things. They don't like doing them either. They just have a reason to do them. They have a reason to subordinate what may be, for a time, unpleasing methods, right? Things that they would not prefer to do. They subordinate those preferences to the goal. The goal is more important. The results are more important. That's what comes first. In other words, they've committed themselves to a result. They're interested in having an outcome. They're interested in causing an effect. And whatever it takes, for as long as it takes to get that effect, and wouldn't you know it, we wind up developing habits. Now, the good thing about a habit is that we don't have to think about it anymore, right? A resourceful habit, think about it. Once you've developed a habit, you don't have to sit around in like decision-making mode or decision avoidance mode anymore, and you can just do stuff. It's a wonderful time saver. I have found personally, before I've committed myself to something, there's a lot of deliberation, there's a lot of indecision, there's a lot of time going by, like I'm immortal or something, and I could just piss away time. By the way, I can't, right? We got to get stuff done, okay? And that happens once we've decided. That happens once we've committed. And here's a guy who I'm about to bring out on the Black Diamond Call who has shared with us before on the Rise in various forms on, from stage at our events. Of course, he'll be with us in the Marketing Mastery event in a couple weeks, and who has committed to his success, and it shows in his stats. So the bottom line is, because we get requests of how can I improve conversions, right? This is a conversation that directly relates to that. If you'd like your conversion stats to go up, you need to listen to this guy because he knows conversion stats, and he also knows how to go up a gradient of that by being committed to a result prior to getting the stats, right? So you think about it, you just showed up here, maybe you're 1 hour in the business, welcome, glad you're here, okay? So before you expect to be handed a cape and mask, because we're not handing out capes and masks today, okay, assuming that you're not a superhero, you're probably not going to have the stats instantaneously, but there is a gradient that you can go up, and this person is someone who knows how to commit to the result and therefore go up that steady gradient to get better and better results. And yes, ultimately become one of those top, 1, 2, 3%. So of course I'm talking about Mr. Josh Elder. Josh, brother, how are you, man?
Dude, I'm doing fantastic, bro. And appreciate the awesome intro. And the beard's not hanging as low as it usually does. I actually managed to get it trimmed last week. So,
I was expecting like a ZZ Top.
Right? Yeah. I was thinking about it, but I don't know if my girlfriend would like that too much. So decided to shape it up. One of the beautiful things, of course, about this business is you can be who you want. If you want to grow your beard out like ZZ Top, go ahead and go do it. So Appreciate the intro, man. I'm excited to give you guys just a ton of value tonight. Obviously, if you're on this call, it says something special about you, so don't discount that. You could be doing so many different things right now. You could be at the movies. You could be, I don't know, shooting hoops. You could be on the couch doing nothing. But the fact that you're here says something about you. And when I finally got on calls just like these, that's when my mindset and my business changed. And I know John referred to, the power of habit and how important that is to your success. And, the difference between somebody that succeeds and somebody that doesn't succeed and the habits that they have are actually there's not a huge difference between those two groups of people. And so people that look at people that are successful tend to think that they need to completely change everything, maybe the way that they dress, right? Maybe the way that they obviously conduct themselves, which of course does need to be changed. But when you really look at it from a bird's eye view, it's really not that different. It's the little habits repeated consistently every single day that make the huge difference. And because of those little habits that I was able to change, I was able to change my life and I was able to change my income. I changed what was on the inside, and that changed everything that was on the outside. And so what I want to do tonight is I kind of want to just take you guys on a journey and sort of give you guys an inside look of what it's like for somebody that's starting out and the trials and tribulations that you're going to face, the things that you're going to go through, and kind of show you guys on the inside of my life on how I got started, on how I overcame these different obstacles, how I created new habits, how I finally fully committed, and how I got results. So I want to take you back about 10 years ago when I was 18 years old and I first started looking into online marketing. I was faced with a decision, do I go to college or do I build my own business? I always had this internal fire. I always had this energy, and I didn't know how to use it. When my friends would want to hang out on the weekends, they want to go to a friend's house, play video games, and sit on the couch, I actually wanted to create something. I wanted to build something of my own, but I didn't know exactly how to do that. And that's really when I started looking beyond just my own social circle of influence, and I started doing research, right? I jumped online. I looked for different ways to start building an income for myself, and I came across a lot of different opportunities. And during this time, I was faced with a decision to go to college, and I didn't know what I wanted to major in. All I knew is that I wanted to make a bunch of money. So what did I pick? Well, I knew that a doctor or a lawyer, was a good choice because they made a ton of money, So what did I decide to do? I decided to go major in physics and try to learn physics, because I knew that if I majored in physics, then I could pretty much do whatever I want. And I knew it was one of the hardest majors to obtain. So I just sort of picked something without thinking about the end in mind, which is the first thing that you need to do is think with the end in mind. What is that end goal that you're looking to accomplish? I see so many, kids come out of high school and go to college, and you ask them what they want to do with their lives, and they have no idea. But in the meantime, they need to be doing something, so they ended up, going to college and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on intuition without any end goal. Maybe they want to get a business degree, but they don't know if they're going to be able to get a job. They don't know what they want to do after they graduate, and so they sort of just hope and pray that things are going to work out. And so when I looked at all my friends, and they were sort of generalizing versus specializing in something, I didn't like the chances of that. I knew I wouldn't have full control over my life, and so that's when I started getting on, into online business, and I started doing some research, and that led me down the path of buying numerous products. I remember actually one specific semester in school, I was fortunate enough to have my parents pay for my school because I was actually playing college baseball and I was super busy. And I don't feel the greatest about this, but I ended up taking that money, and instead of putting that money towards college tuition, I actually bought my first SEO course, which basically a course that showed you how to rank websites in Google. So instead of paying my $2,000 tuition, I bought my first online marketing product. And, I believed in what this world had to offer, but I was sort of at the stage where I had to taste everything. I had to try a little bit of everything, and it's something that I believed in. Of course, eventually I had to come to terms with my parents, and they were pretty upset, and I was honest with them, and that tuition money ended up going to collections, and I ended up dropping out of college because I sort of started to gain an idea of the direction that I wanted to go. I knew that I wanted to make money online. I saw the freedom in it. I saw the financial freedom, the lifestyle, but I didn't quite know if it was truly possible. I was in the process of building that belief system. I know a lot of you guys are in that same process where you're in DA, you're thinking about getting a ticket to the next event, but you haven't fully committed because you want to get that first sale, right? You want to see that first glimpse of success. But the problem with that is you're not going to see it until your belief level is at 100%. And for your belief level to get to 100%, you've got to get to events. So let me take you back. I obviously dropped out of college, and then from there I'm like, okay, I'm going to build this internet business, but I can't use my parents' money anymore. I'm going to have to pay my own way. And so I decided to apply to get a job at a local jewelry store, and I ended up getting the job, got hired on the spot, and now I had a job to fund my internet business. So everything was going well. I was obviously getting paid okay. I was a sales associate for a large jewelry chain, and I ended up doing that for about 6.5, almost 7 years. And during that time, I was sort of learning this business on the side. Now, the difference between what you have access to today and what I had, 6 years ago when I first got started, I didn't have, coaches that could actually do the coaching and do the selling and telling for you. I didn't have systems and processes and leadership and masterminds and calls like this when I first got started. So that was one of the reasons why I didn't succeed. I didn't have one specific mentor to go to. I sort of had a lot of different mentors, and when you have a lot of different mentors, you're listening to a lot of different people, which means you're really listening to nobody. So I guess what I'm asking is you're going to hear from a lot of different people on these calls, but my advice would be take what resonates most with you and try it, test it out, try it on, see how it works out for you, because you're going to do some things that may work for you that may not work for somebody else, and I'm going to do some things that work for me that may not work for you. But all I ask is that you remain open and that you try some philosophies on and see how they work out for you, right? If you're at a restaurant and you want the steak at this restaurant, but you're so used to having the steak, but you've never tried the chicken, and you might actually like the chicken more than the steak, then go ahead and get the chicken, right? The same thing with online business. You're going to hear a lot of different philosophies on different traffic methods, and the best thing that you can do is try a little bit of everything. And I think that's part of sort of the struggle, that's part of the journey, and that's exactly where I was at. My first 5 years of really building an online business is that I was more curious than serious, and I was sort of dipping my toe in the water, and I was kind of in the testing phase, and again, I didn't have access to these calls. I didn't have access to great people like John Lavinia and other people out there in the online marketing world. And so I was sort of left to figure things out on my own. And that's what I did for 6 years. I tried a bunch of different appetizers, a bunch of different main courses, a bunch of different sides. I tried different, systems, and I learned a lot. Tried a bunch of different traffic methods, and but I wasn't fully committed. I sort of looked at it as some pipe dream or a hobby for a very long time, and that's what was actually keeping me from success. And I was becoming more successful at my day job too, which affected my hours, and I would start to justify things like, what, maybe I could sell jewelry for the rest of my life. I don't need to be an entrepreneur. It's difficult. You've got to put in work, and you don't know if that's going to produce a result or not. You're not clocking in and clocking out, and you're not guaranteed money. And so what we tend to do is we tend to justify things. And I would justify things, and I would, stop sort of working on my online business. I'd go back and work on my job. But then, of course, I didn't have full control there. I was just as good as my last month. I was afraid of getting fired. Some days I felt like I wasn't good enough. Some days I felt like I was just treated as a number. And so I had all these things going through my head, and a lot of times you finally get fed up. And then I would come back to this online business, and I would try something else. And then I would justify my job again. And I'd go through and I'd repeat the cycle over and over and over and over again. And it wasn't until about the beginning of 2012, where I bought a product, and I told myself, I said, Josh, you're going to fully commit to this. You're not going to have this shiny object syndrome. You're not going to look at anything else. You're going to fully commit to this. The next thing that you come across and that you buy, you're going to commit to it. And so I made a decision for 1 full year to commit to something. So I ended up, for some reason I kept being led down this road, of search engine optimization, SEO, which is one traffic strategy that you can implement in your business, which is basically ranking websites, ranking videos at the top of the search engines for any given keyword phrase. And so I happen to just be falling back into this method, and I continue to buy different products. And I told myself, I'm not going to jump around. I'm not going to try. Of course, Instagram wasn't around back then, but there was plenty of other strategies, Facebook marketing. There was forum marketing. There was Google AdWords, right? And so, listening to all these marketing messages that say, one thing's dead, you jump on my thing. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard that before, the fact that, email marketing's dead. You've got to do SEO, right? And I think that's marketing. People are going to do what they're going to do to get you to buy whatever product. And so I had this awareness at that point that, people were going to say what they were going to say just to get my business. So I decided to sort of blank everything out and just focus 100% on search engine optimization and commit to it. And whatever opportunity I was going to come across, I was going to fully commit to that too. So what I decided to do is, create right around 80 websites implementing this strategy, and they were all ranking inside of Google, and I was making some money from a program called Google AdSense. I was making anywhere between $70 to $100 a day or so. Working a day job was pretty good, but I was putting in a lot of work doing it. I was making websites every single day. I was writing my own articles. I was uploading and optimizing these articles. Doing the little magic to rank these websites at the top. And about April 2012, I was thinking, cool, I'm going to be able to quit my job and be able to do this full time. And then I lost everything. I lost all my rankings. And I realized that it was a learning experience, right? I'm glad I did it because I got clarity as to how to do it better next time. And I noticed the difference between doing short-term strategies and implementing long-term strategies, and that was a very short-term strategy. But the fact that I didn't quit said something about me. The fact that I didn't quit after I bought my first course said something about me. So if you've come to Digital Altitude and you haven't quit, that says something about you. I say if you throw enough darts at the dartboard, you're eventually going to hit a bullseye. And I knew I was on that path. I knew I was on my way to doing that. I was slowly changing my paradigm. I was slowly changing my habits. I was able to focus more. And one of my mentors told me early on, he said, or one of the guys I was listening to, he said, focus on your focus. And so I realized that it's important not just to focus, but to focus on focusing. For example, when you got up in the morning and maybe a lot of you guys obviously work on your business early hours in the morning. Some of you guys work on your business late at night. But for those of you, whatever time it may be, what are you doing on Facebook when you first get on Facebook? Are you even getting on Facebook? Or are you getting on your computer to actually do something that's going to impact your business and give you leverage? Are you creating content versus getting caught up in somebody else's agenda? So I think focus is so important, and it took me a while to get to gain focus because I had all these distractions. I get on my computer, I got my email popped up, I got my Facebook, I've got my Skype, and I'm getting notifications from all these different angles. And so that's an easy way to failure. And I find a lot of people that are dealing with this epidemic, this social media epidemic, is they're getting caught in other people's agendas. They're getting caught in somebody else's dreams, instead of creating their own. So I urge you, before you even jump on your computer, write down some income-producing activities that need to get done. Maybe it's writing down 10 emails that you're going to send out for that whole entire week, right? And you're doing that on Monday. Maybe it's creating video content and article content, Facebook content on Tuesday, right? And then on Wednesday, if you want to fool around on Facebook for a minute, you can do that, right? As they say in the 7 habits of highly effective people, step 7 is to sharpen the saw. After you've completed those income-producing activities, now you want to study more so you have more value to give to the marketplace. And so, in 2012, the end of 2012, I really started to learn this. I started to focus more on my mindset, and I started focusing less on the technical aspects of my business. I used to be the guy that was like, just show me the how-to stuff. Show me what I need to do. Do I need to cut and paste something? Do I need to write something? Tell me what to do. I want to get results. But then I realized it was more about the mindset, because when you've got the right mindset, just like you've got the right foundation on the house, you have a firm foundation to build upon. You're going to obviously be more productive. You're going to be stronger. You're going to be more committed to the outcomes. You're going to have more energy in your content. The content that you create is going to impact people so much more because it's so much more believable. So the key here is to increase first your belief level well before you start implementing the technical things. And that's exactly what this Digital Altitude was designed for, is to guide you through these steps to help you eliminate beliefs that don't serve you and replace those with new beliefs that do serve you. So once I realized that my beliefs were actually not my beliefs, and that they were beliefs of even my family, my coworkers, my ancestors, I knew that my thoughts and what I thought actually wasn't a representation of who I was. It was just my paradigm, and it was the programming that was deeply embedded in my mind for so many years. So I realized that I needed to first change this paradigm. I had to change what was on the inside before I could change what was on the outside, because what's going on the outside in your life is a direct reflection of what's going on in the inside. So late 2013, I started getting on calls like this. I joined my first real, company, obviously not even comparable to Digital Altitude, but it was my start. And I jumped on, they had Wednesday night calls, and I would jump on all those Wednesday night calls, and I believe they had a Monday night call too that I was on as well. But I tuned into all these calls, and I realized that I had to change my paradigm. I had to change my mindset, and I had to build that belief within so I could make an impact on people, so I could influence them, to change their lives. And I know, John, you've talked about this in other calls, the power of influence and the power of belief, and marketing and sales is all a transference in belief from one person to another. I know you guys that have been on all these calls, you hear this a lot, and if you hear this common occurrence, it means something, right? It's a rule of success. So early 2013, I joined a company. By April of 2013, I actually had my first $1,000 day on the internet. Why? Because I started believing in the process well before I created the result. Well before I had that first result, I positioned myself well before I made that first large commission. So I know a lot of people on this call, you're kind of in a position, maybe you're in a position, you've met with your coaches, you're ready to get to the next level, but you have some fears. You have some fears of investing in yourself without knowing if you're actually going to put in the work. So what you've got to do sometimes, you've got to jump off the cliff and know that somebody's going to catch you on the way down, and that's sort of what I did. I invested in my first high-ticket program, and I even went from promoting a lot of these low-ticket items too as well, because I obviously had a little bit of success before that, but I didn't believe that somebody was actually going to come in and spend $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000. I didn't think that was going to happen. And so what happened was I kept making those small commissions. I kept promoting, ClickBank products and JV products that would, pay me 50% commissions on a $100 product. I made $50, and, how many sales to replace my income. I knew it was going to require a lot, and with the traffic method that I was implementing and the products that I was promoting, that wasn't going to happen. So I had to have faith that the system first was going to work, and I had to be willing to invest into myself. So I committed to investing into myself. And lo and behold, well before I actually even did that, I got my first commission, and I ended up passing the $3,000 commission up to somebody else, and that was a learning lesson. But I wish that I came first into that business with the belief that this will work. This will work, not what ifs, not buts, not, this will work. I'm going to find the resources. I'm going to be resourceful. I'm not going to become victim. I didn't become victim because I tried a lot of things in the past, and I failed and failed and failed. And I spent tens of thousands of dollars, which, you guys don't have to do that, especially with what we have, set up in place for you. But I ended up wasting a lot of money, but I didn't let that affect my belief in what I was doing, because I had a strong why, right? I couldn't stand the thought of going back to a day job. I'd rather kill myself than go work a 9-to-5 under somebody else's order and let my dreams to die in a grave because of fear. So I realized that fear was the cause of me struggling for so many years, and I knew that if I didn't do something, I was going to be 65 years old on my deathbed with all these regrets. So that's what really motivated me to really just have a plan A and not have a plan B. And when I came forth with that mindset, I made quantum leaps in my business. So you guys don't have to spend years and years and years struggling, like I did, or like a lot of people in the industry. All you have to do is make that quantum leap in your mindset, shift your paradigm, and you're going to shift your outside world. The bigger that you think on the inside, the bigger your results are going to be on the outside. So if your goals don't scare you, then they're not big enough. If you're not putting yourself in uncomfortable situations constantly, then you're not doing what it takes to achieve your full potential. So first, change your paradigm. Once you change your paradigm, you can change your habits, because when you change your thoughts, those thoughts produce new habits, and when you produce new habits, you have new actions, then those new actions produce a new result. So I knew that I had to start with what I was thinking on a daily basis. So April, I had my first $1,000 month. By the end of that year, that December, of course, I was working 60 to 70 hours a week at my job because it was Christmas time, and in sales, especially retail sales, you work quite a bit of hours. And so I was working my butt off and working my business part-time, and it was pretty amazing to see what had happened. I put about probably 15 to 20 hours into my internet business, and combined, you take 60 hours, 70 hours a week times 4, that's quite a bit of hours, right? Almost 200 hours. And then over on the other side, I put in 20 hours in my online business, and I ended up making the same amount that month that I did in my business. But I didn't end up quitting my job until late 2014. Why? Fear. I was afraid to quit my job because I was afraid that if I did that, I wasn't going to be able to produce consistent results inside my business. So I wasn't fully committed. I still wasn't fully committed. I still have this fear, of the unknown. If I quit my job and I start doing this, what if it doesn't work out? What if I don't make as much money? What if I can't pay the bills? What if I can't pay my car? And so these old paradigms started to pop up in my mind, and I believe this is something that that doesn't exactly go away. I believe that old habits can't necessarily be replaced, but I believe that they can be overridden. And I believe that if you sleep for a second, that your old habits could, again, sneak up on you and once again become your current habits. So I realized this when I stopped focusing on personal development. When I stopped listening to audio daily, I actually used to drive around in my car, and I used to listen to the same Bob Proctor tape over and over and over and over again, just like he did with, listening to Earl Nightingale's record. I believe it was, The Strangest Secret, or he had other records that he listened to. And so I realized that, I was just going to model and copy what, other successful people were doing. I'm going to let go of my ego, and I'm just going to continue to build my mindset up to a point where I have that all-knowing, unwavering belief that I can do, that I can make this business work, that I could do anything. And so I remember that year, the summer, it was about June 2014, I remember waking up one day, and I just had this feeling, and I was driving to work, and I'm like, I can do this. I can quit my job. I can make this work. And I got to work, and I had a conversation with one of my work associates, and I was super excited. I was actually getting them on board. I was showing them results in my back office. They're like, Josh, why aren't you doing this full time? And of course it was fear. But I remember that day. I remember something just changed in my mindset. And I went from thinking, hope and praying that I could do this, to this all-knowing belief that I can make this happen. I could make this work. This is up to me. I got to just jump in head first and take a leap of faith. And I finally did that. That very next month, I didn't make $3-4 grand a month like I did in my day job. I ended up making $10,000 my first month. I was able to put all my focus and all my energy into my business. And so that's due to the fact that I was fully committed and I was consistent in my efforts, right? I was consistent in my efforts. I was putting up content daily. I didn't know exactly what to say on these videos. All I knew was somebody told me, Josh, take the camera, here's a video challenge, shoot a video for 30 days and just document your journey, document what's going on in your life. And that's what I started doing. And first time I did that, man, there was a ton of fear. I remember being in my parents' basement. It was almost like pitch black. I opened up my laptop, hit the record button on my web camera, and I had no idea what to say. And by the end of that first video, obviously it was a terrible video, so you've got to accept first that your first few videos, your first few pieces of content, they're going to suck unless you have some natural talent. And you got to be okay with that. We're taught growing up in school, we get D's and F's, and we get report cards, and we get graded on everything, and we think failure is such a bad thing. And then we get to this entrepreneurial sort of world, and we realize how good failure is and how much clarity failure gives us. And so I started thinking that, failure was actually a good thing. It was getting me closer to my goal. It was teaching me, it was showing me how to perfect formulas. And the only way to perfect formulas and the only way to achieve success is to fail. So I actually started embracing failure. I almost became impervious to other people's judgment and what they said about me. I knew it was going to happen. And the first few times, of course, I got a little down. It hurt my feelings. It touched a soft part of me. But I knew that those people that were trolling me, that were being negative, those haters, those were the people that weren't willing to have the courage to overcome their fears. So the only way that they made themselves better was to bring other people down. Once I recognized that, I stopped taking things personally, and I started taking things with a grain of salt, with each and every piece of content that I created. And I got to a point where, I failed a lot. I created a lot of campaigns that didn't work. But through those campaigns that didn't work, I had such a strong vision. I was thinking with the end in mind. that unwavering belief that I had. And I just kept putting out content. And I did that for, solid, if you go back 3 years, I've done that for about 3 years. Every morning I see a video, pop up on my Facebook news feed for my past memories. And it told me something. I said a lot of the same content, because I didn't really have a structure to it at that point. I was just told, take massive action, put out content. And I did that. And, I recently went back to my content and I repeated a lot of the same things over and over and over and over again. But even by doing that, it produced a positive result for me. So just by you guys telling your story, even if you're repeating your story, even if you feel you're saying the same things in a lot of your content, as long as you're consistent, you'll eventually develop the craft and you'll evolve and you'll be able to focus more on building your business versus just being inside of your business. You'll be able to structure your content more effectively. You're going to be able to build your business in a way that really gives you freedom and leverage. And so you're going to go through some phases, but you've got to just believe that you're going to achieve the result. And I know people that are successful that speak to people that are sort of up and coming, they're getting started. I know that I could look at most people, in the eyes and I can tell whether or not they're committed to success or not. You can't, as they say, you can't bullshit somebody that's had success, that's been successful, because you do see a lot of what I like to call entrepreneurs on the internet, on Facebook, and they're showing, screenshots, and they're showing this lifestyle that's a facade that isn't real, right? And I see a lot of this in the marketplace, but you can't let that affect you and your path. You've got to stay in your own lane, and you've got to focus on being better tomorrow than you were yesterday. So I hope that really helps you guys. I hope that resonates with some of you, that are working a 9-to-5 job or that are maybe struggling or that are just getting started. You've got to fully commit. You've got to jump in head first and know that I'm going to be somebody. John's going to be somebody. Other people in this community are going to be some, people that are going to lift you to the top, to the apex of the mountain. I love Michael Force's metaphor, when it comes to, building a business and how he relates it to digital altitude and climbing a mountain. So with that said, John, I don't know if you have anything to add there, but that's a little bit of the value that I have for you guys today. I don't know if we want to move to Q&A or what we want to do at this point.
Well, I do want to move to Q&A, and I'm sure we've got a lot of people that want to jump out here after what you just said, but I'm going to be first. That's right, I'm going to be first, damn it. Josh, that was, my goodness, man. You said a few things in there that I hope everybody, you need to go listen to this again, because he said a few things that was so huge. And number one that I just want to bring up, just because I'm so enthusiastic about what I just heard, Josh, is the idea that you got to try these things on for yourself and commit to a path and not be constantly chasing, and I'll paraphrase how you said it, but constantly chasing, this guru, that guru, different secrets, shiny objects, and constantly doubting yourself. That's right there. That's the thing that we see so many people fall into a trap, not just in online business, but in life, man. We're talking about life here. This is a huge topic, huge. And my suggestion, because I've been through that same sort of thing, always looking at, what other people are doing and what they think, in my opinion, and I'm not sure if I'm doing it right, and I need to do this way, that way, 10,000 different ways, and going wide but not going deep on a method or developing a habit or moving with certainty. And I could tell you, because, we've studied a lot of the same stuff, and you and I had a very brief conversation before we launched the call tonight. But I can tell you that the way to do it right is to know you're doing it right, to make a decision, to decide on a method, to decide what you want, which a lot of people actually don't do, which is really the primary problem. And then they go around in a state of chronic indecision, never quite developing a habit, never quite committing. And that indecision is what destroys people. Yes, but, okay, great, now we got a maybe, right? So as soon as we got a maybe, we're basically, we're destroying ourselves. That's what we do. That's a failure mechanism right there. Indecision and living in constant maybes.
Maybe babies, as I like to call them.
Yeah, and it's tragic because, and here's the last thing I'll say about it, and then we'll open it up. The thing is that not everybody, believe it or not, folks, not everybody who purports to be an internet marketing guru or something, not every person who proclaims their expertise is actually so, or will lead you in the direction that you want to go. So what I recommend is that people become a fruit inspector, like the old Bible saying, by their fruits you shall know them, right? So we should be a fruit inspector and take a look at, what is not only the results of a person, but also take a look at, if you have ears to hear it, okay, not everybody does, okay, but take a look at the intention of the communication, the intention of the individual who is originating, whatever secrets that you need to be successful. Because there are, and as you know, Josh, I've been studying philosophy for 30 years, there's a lot of slave philosophies out there, where the end result is that you get to be a devotee or a disciple of, whoever the guru is. That's not the point of real personal development. The real point is that you get to be more self-determined and more able and not needy and dependent. So this is a huge conversation, Josh, huge. You touched on that and a few other things, but I'm not going to take up all the time because I want to get in, some Q&A here and some commentary. But thank you, man. There was so much insight in what you just shared. So very grateful, man. Thank you.
Brother.
All right, so here we go. We're going to go ahead and open this up for Q&A. And the way I do that is by clicking this button right here. And Q&A session has started. So if you'd like to come out and talk with Josh in person, yes, and you are on a phone or a Skype or on the free conference call app, then you can click your microphone mute button, or if you're on a phone, you can click *6 is the command to raise your hand, and then I think the number 1 confirms it. And then you'll be, I'll call everybody out here one by one as you come out on the call. So don't be shy. We have our first caller, who is Bree. Bree, you're live on the air. Bree, maybe you're double muted. Bree, are you there? B-R-I-E. I hope I'm saying that right. Is it Bree? Bree? Hello, Bree. One more try. You're live on the air?
Well, look, Bree.
Okay. All right, so everybody, we're going to go to our next caller, I think. Oh, we had a next caller, but they vanished. Okay, so this is your big chance to talk with the mighty Josh Elder before he's swamped and stampeded with people at our Marketing Mastery event in Orlando in a couple weeks. So if you're coming out here, go ahead and click *6. And I see a bunch of commentary in the chat roll. People really got a lot out of this, Joshua. Again, thank you. We're going to go to our next caller. Bree, you can always raise your hand again if you figure out your microphone situation. We're going to go to our next caller now, who is Nick. Nick, you're live on the air.
Hi.
Hey, there he is. We can hear him.
Nick. You said about the videos, the beginner first-time videos that, was it? That they're going to suck probably for the first time. Do you still post them?
Hell yeah, I do. Yeah, man, post them. There's something that happens when you actually take that content, because I think there's a fear in posting something that maybe you're not proud about. But the more that you do it, the more that you become comfortable with it. You could become more comfortable watching yourself, listening to your voice. I don't know if you've noticed if you have created a piece of content or a video before, you listen to yourself for the first time, you're like, man, I sound terrible, my voice is raspy, I'm doing this eye twitch thing. You'll notice different things. But the more that you just create the content and put it up there, it just becomes easier. There's just something that happens, I guess an energy that happens when you just get the content out there to the world. It really breaks down that barrier of fear, and like it's almost like a lot of people have this fear of being exposed, right? And that sort of eliminates it, you know. It helps you become just sort of like impervious, like I said, to all the negative feedback. You know, so you just got to realize, once I realized that, you know, only 2% of people, really 3% of people really commit to creating video content and taking those actions. You know, the only difference is people that take actions versus people that don't is, you know, the action itself. So if you're willing to take that action and put that content out there, you gotta understand that 98% of people aren't willing to do what you just did. So you've already completely separated yourself. So I hope that helps.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome, man.
All right. Thank you, Nick. And we are go to our next caller, which is Michael from Tampa. Michael, you're live on the air.
Hello, this is Michael from Tampa, Florida. How are you, John and Josh?
Very good.
My question is, I have a pretty much same story. I built last 2 years ranking on CEO, and basically, how I want to ask you, how long did it take you to build a ranking before you start making money, and how much was your profit from every single product you sold? How much was the profit?
Sure, yeah. So it took me about a solid 3 months to rank a lot of the content that I was creating. So when you create a video, you want to make sure that you have intention for it. So first I want to say, okay, what is the purpose of this video? Do I want to get traffic from this video? Do I want to build a relationship with this video? What is the overall purpose of this video, right? So what I do is I'll separate my videos, my traffic generation videos from my other videos. So what I did is I would focus one day on just creating videos that were, the sole purpose was to generate traffic. And it took me about 3 months before I really found a system and a formula that really worked for me. And so you got to be willing to really play the long game a lot of times with the videos, and it depends on numerous factors like the keyword phrases, the search phrases that you're attempting to rank for.
Got it.
It depends on the competition and things of that nature. So what I decided to do, instead of getting caught up with all the technicalities of everything, because you can easily get paralyzed by the technical stuff, I just said, I'm just going to create content, and then I'm going to look at my data 90 days from now. Right? I'm going to commit to this strategy for 3 months. The problem is everybody's trying everything, but they're not committing to one thing long enough, right? So I would urge you to commit to a strategy. If it is video marketing, commit to it for a solid 3 months and take action daily, and then go back and look at your data, and then you could say, okay, cool, this is what I can change. This is what's not working. This is what is working. So I would sort of implement minor differences between videos that I would upload, and I would find which ones ranked higher and which ones didn't, and the ones that were ranking higher, I would implement those strategies more. So, you've really got to make a decision that, hey, I'm going to master this skill set. If it is video, like myself, I never thought I'd be the video guy. I mean, I hated being on video. I hated putting myself out there, but I knew I knew the result if I did that, right? I knew the results. I knew what it was going to give me because my mentor did the same thing. So that's what pushed me forward to just fully commit to it and say, hey, it's not if this is going to work, it's when it's going to work. And I just fully committed. So hope that helps, man.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Josh. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Hope to see you in Orlando.
Oh yeah, I'm coming over, sir.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah, well, Michael, he lives there. He can hitchhike to Orlando from where he is, right?
Yeah. Michael, did I meet you in Maui?
No, I've been in Vegas, and I've been in Vegas on event in Vegas, but not Maui. But I got good things coming. soon. So, I mean, Michael Force just called me today on my phone, and he want to talk to me in Orlando. So I'm pretty super pumped, excited for Orlando, and I've been creating my future by investing in real estate. I call that cash flow project, and I've been DA member for 8 months, and finally I got my house under contract, and I'm basically be creating generating over 30,000 profit on this project called cash flow, and I use this profit to invest into DA, and basically it's an amazing journey through the real estate.
Awesome.
You know, I'm coming back to DA, so I'm
That's
kind
cool,
of build myself over the 8 months. You know, so
Yep. Cool,
I'm
man.
coming
Well,
back,
I
guys.
can't wait to meet you in Orlando.
Yes, sir.
Come say hi to me.
No problem.
Don't hesitate. All right, dude.
No,
We'll see
I
you.
will. I have a great story, guys. Thank you.
Awesome, dude. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Michael. And that was our last caller. So Joshua, thank you again, man. A lot of great insights. Again, our chat roll is blowing up here. People really got a lot. Everybody give Joshua some love here, and also on the Digital Altitude Facebook group. There's a post there, a Black Diamond announcement for the week. And yeah, one way to definitely start to get the habit going of communicating more in public, like what Joshua was talking about with videos or whatever the medium. One way to do that is just to start acknowledging people, when they do something nice for you. So good idea to do that. Joshua, thanks again. Any closing comments from you, sir?
No, my friend. It's just great to co-host and be along with you, man. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Very good. Very good. Well, of course, we'll see you again in just a couple of weeks live on stage in Orlando, Florida at the Marketing Mastery event. Again, everybody make sure you got your tickets. Do not wait till the last minute to do that because then all prices go up, right? So get those tickets in and get your flights or whatever you need, and we will be looking forward to seeing you there. In the meantime, have a great night. You absolutely deserve it, and we will be back here tomorrow with Joel Strait on our wake-up call for Tuesday morning wake-up call. We'll see you guys then. Bye for now.